If you decide to add another keyframe somewhere along the line, you can add a keyframe in the middle of a scene by coming up to the Tool Properties panel once you have your camera selected, and then you can click this button that says Add Keyframe at the current frame. Now you may notice that the button here is grayed out, the one that allows you to add a keyframe at the beginning, and the one at the end is grayed out also. They're grayed out right now because we already have a beginning position and we already have an ending position. So let's say I wanted to insert a keyframe in the middle of this panel. I'll just press Add a Keyframe, and now I have a new keyframe here on the timeline, and it also appears here highlighted with a bolder line, and it's blue. And as you add keyframes in between the start and the end position of your panel, those keyframes are going to appear to be blue. So you may want to have this intermediate keyframe just so that you can choose to have your truck in go in a slightly different direction or hook in a different way. As you'll notice, what I did here is I grabbed the center point of the new frame, but it also shows me that I can change the direction of that center frame to achieve a different kind of effect. So for example, for this intermediate position, I may want to bend the camera path. And by doing that, you can see when I let go that you can view what the camera path looks like through these arrows. So now I'm going to scrub through, and you can see the difference as it moves. The camera moves in on a curving motion. And if I click this camera button here, now I'll be able to see what it looks like when it's actually rendered. There's kind of a curve to the camera path now. All right, so now I can see that I have 3 different keyframes. I have the one at the beginning, which is green, the one in the middle, which is blue, and I have the one at the very end, which is red. And you can add as many keyframes as you want to. For most basic storyboards, there's not going to be a real need for this, but it's just good to know that you can. If I wanted to add another keyframe in this frame, I'm still able to do it. I'll click it, and another blue frame is indicated. So all of the keyframes that are in between the start and the stop of the panel are going to be blue, and you can manipulate each one of those separately. If I want to change that path again, I could go to this button that says go to selected keyframe. Now my playhead is at that specific spot, and I could grab that center line to again move the path if I wanted to do that. This is not the kind of camera move that I would normally use in a scene like this, but to play it, I will click on this panel and hit that loop button and then press play selection, and I can see it swooping in toward the center. But if I want to see what it looks like from the camera's point of view, I'll click camera and then press play selected again, and it will show me this curving path toward my target. Now I want to play the whole scene, so I'm going to click on both panels by selecting one panel and then pressing shift button and then selecting the other panel, and now I'll press play selected so I can see the whole scene. And now I'm going to determine that I want to hold for a little bit before I truck in. So let me pause that. Let me put the camera mask back on. I'm going to continue to play it so that I can see what it will look like. But what I'm kind of feeling right here is that I want to hold on this frame for a little bit longer before the camera starts to move in. And the reason I want to show you this is that it's possible to move these keyframes around. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to eliminate those intermediate keyframes. And the way I'm going to do that is by clicking on the specific keyframe I want to delete. I can go to this button that says Selected Keyframes, Delete Selected Keyframes. I'm going to click that. So now I have deleted it. I'm going to go to the next keyframe, which is this blue one. And you'll notice there's another way of selecting it, is that I just clicked on that keyframe in my stage view, and then it automatically became selected down here. So I'm going to do that again. I want to select this keyframe. I could click directly on this keyframe, which makes that bold, or I can click directly on the keyframe in the stage view, and then this becomes selected here too. So I'm simply going to press this button to delete that particular keyframe. You could also right-click on that keyframe and then go to Delete Selected Camera Keyframes, or you could press the Delete key. And so now that keyframe has disappeared. So now I just have my first panel and my second panel with a zoom in. But if you recall, what I want to do is I want to have this drawing held for a little bit before I zoom in. So now I'm going to move that keyframe. The way I'm going to move the keyframe is by clicking on it to select it and then move it in the timeline so that the move doesn't start as soon as that pose takes effect. So let me scroll back, and now as I scroll through you can see it doesn't start to move until I get to a particular point. And if you have dialogue that you're trying to sync up this camera move with, you may want to move those keyframes so that they happen exactly when you want them to. So I'm going to play this scene again. I'm going to click one panel, click with a shift to select the other panel, and I'm going to come up here and press play selected. So now when I do, you can see the difference is that there's the first panel, the second panel, and then the truck in. So look at the timeline as it's playing, and you can see that I've delayed the start of the camera move. I'm going to scrub through this scene again, taking the camera view off. I'm going to go to the toolbar and click that off. And now when I scrub through the scene, we can see it from the point of view of the stage view. We can really see what's going on in terms of where the camera position is. And I'm also going to unclick this camera mask so that you can see things a little bit clearer also basically in the stage view without this camera enabled. But there is another button on here that I just want to show you, which is the show the complete camera path. If this is enabled, then even while I'm on the first panel, it's going to show me ultimately what the camera path is going to be. It illustrates it so that I can see where the camera is going to end up in the later panels, even when I'm in the earlier panels, but I prefer to have that turned off. So we saw that I can move the keyframes so that this camera move doesn't happen until I want it to, and I can do the same thing with the keyframe that it's at the end. I can move that in so that the ending position holds for a little bit longer too. If I scrub through it, you can see I'm holding, and then the camera move happens, and then it stays holding. So this is a time when I'm going to want this mask on, and I'm going to want to enable the camera view. So now when I scrub through it, he says, I don't get excited by much, but look at this. And then we hold on that for a little bit longer.